Good afternoon. Welcome again to my Hangout. My name is Elian Ramos, and I'm your host. And today I have the honor of interviewing the son of Latino immigrants, a veteran, a community leader, somebody who from very humble beginnings has risen to great political heights. In his relative new role as a congressman, he has quickly managed to make a name for himself by tackling very tough issues like income inequality, access to education, immigration, campaign finance reform, and veteran issues. I'm talking about U.S. Representative Rubén Gallego from Arizona's 7th Congressional District. I can't wait for you to hear his inspiring story. Welcome, Congressman. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here today. I know you have a really busy schedule, so I want to make your story pop up in this interview.
Sure.
So let's start with, you're a child of immigrants. You come from a very unusual background for a politician, for a congressman. So tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, I am, come from both Latino parents. My mom is from Colombia. My dad is from Mexico. For a little while, I lived in Chihuahua, Mexico, too. Lived on a farm. But we moved back here, and we had a very, typical immigrant experience. My dad worked construction. My mom worked in offices as a secretary. And, it was a very good upbringing for a little bit, at least. And then, like many immigrant families, we hit some hard times. My dad left when I was fairly young, and then he got into other things. My mom, it was just me, my mom, my three sisters, and we relied on each other basically to come through. And because of my mom's force and also the rest of my family members' force, we all went to college. We all graduated. We all have great lives right now. But it was a tough time. It was a really tough time in my life too.
Wow. And not only that, but then you ended up going to Harvard, right?
Yes.
How did that happen?
Well, at some point it was around my freshman year when it was I hit a low point in my life, just because things weren't going very well in terms of my family life. And I decided that I needed to have something to work for in order to make every day just livable. And I think it's really important especially for young men, when you find yourself in a situation where, you just don't know what the next day is, to look at the future, look at the dream and say, like, I need to strive for that. Because if not, every day becomes a struggle. And for me, I needed to believe in that. I needed to have something just to motivate me. So I decided I was going to go to Harvard, and I started studying. I started taking my tests. I talked to my teachers. I talked to Harvard alumni that I found on the internet, and I called them up. And I asked them how they got into Harvard. And then I put a plan together, and I went to my teachers and I went to my counselor, and I said, this is how we're going to get into Harvard, and these are the things we have to do for the next 4 years. And I just dedicated myself to doing that. And, I didn't know I was going to get into Harvard, but I knew no matter what, I was going to go to a school, I was going to get a scholarship. And also, like, just the focus really helped me, stay out of trouble, stay out of, trouble with gangs, stay out of trouble with drugs, all these other things. And then it was something that was really important for me to do. And I think it was also important for my family to see, somebody in the household that was trying to, do well.
Wow, such an amazing arc. And then on top of that, you at some point, you left Harvard and you joined the Marines. So
yeah.
Why did you do that? What are some of your memories from that time?
Well, one of the things that I did anticipate about going to Harvard is Harvard was a very different culture for me. I can do the work academically, but culturally, it's a very rich school. I didn't even have a bed of my own. I largely slept like in the living room on the couch or on a little fold-out mattress for about 7 years until my first bed was at Harvard. And so that's a really weird transition when you go from, we weren't poor, we were working class, but going from there to an extremely rich society, I just did not adjust well. And it really affected my grades. I was working a lot too. I started getting bad grades. Harvard noticed that and said, I think you need to take some time off and then come back. And I decided at that point, if I'm going to take some time off, I'm going to do what I've always wanted to do also, and that was to serve and join the military. So I did that. And so I went and joined the Marines. I did my training, and then I returned after about a year of training back to Harvard.
Wow, wow. So it's such a big jump, right? And so what got you into politics to begin with? Okay, so you come from this humble background where nobody that you knew was a
No,
politician. You
no.
didn't have that kind of role model. What attracted you to politics?
I think like I always have had somewhere in my heart a really strong pull towards social justice. I just never was able to politically enunciate it as a young man. Um, and then, a lot of things happened in the war. I was in the infantry, in the Marine Corps infantry. And, this is 2 years into the war. We didn't have the proper armor in Iraq. My best friends died because of politicians not doing their job. And then to return to the United States to a VA system that was not ready for us. I heard of a lot of my Marine buddies that committed suicide. So all these things like really got me riled up. And so I started getting involved in politics there. And at the same time, this is all in Arizona where there's all this anti-Latino sentiment that was occurring. And I just felt that there was not much leadership even within the Latino community to push back on this xenophobia. And I decided to kind of start getting myself involved. But I first got involved as an activist. I volunteered, I marched, I organized, I helped run campaigns. And then, eventually I decided that me and actually a lot of young Latinos and Latinas decided that we needed new leadership in Arizona. We started running ourselves. And so that I was one of the first ones elected at 30 for State House. And it kind of just evolved from there.
Wow, I can see the emotion when you talk about your time in the military. That must have been a harrowing experience for you. So how do all of these amazing experiences, they are truly remarkable, how do they influence the way that you do, your role in Congress or the kind of legislation that you push for?
Well, I think, I am a sum of all my experiences and everyone else that helped me get here. And so for me, like policy and politics are very, very much an extension of, what my soul feels. And so I think I take on some subject matters that normally others would not take on. And I'm willing to push the envelope and fight for a lot of the causes I think that are important. And look, I consider myself a very progressive and liberal person, and I'm proud of it. I think we need to have people that are here to fight for working class people, fight for the poor, fight for our veterans. And sometimes that requires somebody to be a little stronger, a little louder. And I'm going to be that person because I don't know how not to be that person because that's what got me into politics.
Yeah, you have such a big heart. You're obviously a very sensitive and passionate person. How is life in DC now? I mean, how has DC been treating you? And there must be some parts about your work in Congress that are very frustrating right now. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, of course it gets frustrating when, you think you have good legislation, the Republicans block it. I have great staff. I do a lot of good work. I feel we're very helpful to our community, to my district, the Latino community. Being away from family is difficult. Having the long hours is difficult. And that's the hard part. My wife and my mom are back in Phoenix, and I get to see them only on the weekend. So of course that's very difficult. So we're a very close family, but it's part of the territory. If I feel like this is worthwhile for my community, I have to do this.
Yeah, and you obviously have that fire. You came to DC to fight for what is right?
If you voted for me thinking that I wasn't going to be a fighter, I don't know where you got that idea. I've always been known as a fighter for my community.
Very good, and that's what we need. That's exactly what we need. So being a congressman is not easy, obviously, but especially with your background, and especially in because you serve Arizona, which is not a very I'm not gonna say anything bad about Arizona because I've been there and I love it and I have a lot of great friends, but it's not necessarily a very immigrant-friendly state, right? But to make things even more challenging for yourself, you've been tackling all of these issues that are very polarizing. They're very important, but they that you're setting up a fight when you take on certain kinds of issues. So can you talk about some of those issues and policies that you're pushing for?
Well, I'm always pushing, obviously, for comprehensive racial reform. You know, it's never good to have any sector of your population living in the shadows, having to work in the shadows, and being preyed upon by people that people that are disconnected from society. And that's really important in Arizona. We have a lot of people that have been there for years, but are working, subpar wages, living in subpar housing standards that affects the whole state. And they're citizens, but everything but paper. And they have kids that are citizens, and it makes no sense that we don't bring them into the fold and make them full Americans. So that's one. Two. I've also been tackling recently the trying to get more or trying to give access to DACA recipients to be in the military, and I was successful getting it out of committee, but it became very controversial in the Republican caucus, and they fought me tooth and nail for 2 weeks, and we lost at the end of the day, but I think the most important thing is that we actually put the fight up very strongly. We lost by about 10 votes. And I think this is an issue now that people are going to have to take up. Hillary Clinton has taken up this issue. Different candidates have commented on this issue. I think this is something that we're going to continue talking about. And the other thing that I really think is important is college affordability. For the first time in a long time, the Latino community is going to be putting up the most amount of high school graduates, while at the same time, college is going to be the most expensive ever in the history of America. The Latino community is not going to be part of the American dream or the modern American economy if we're not educating them. And if you're a businessman, if you're any American, if you're not educating the largest population of Americans coming in, no matter what color they are, whether they black, blue, brown, whatever color, if you're not educating them, we're not going to have the economy of the future. And right now, that's why I think it's important that we all push and then talk about college affordability, because we can't guarantee that our kids are going to have a better future than us if they can't afford to go to college. And I think that as one of the younger members of Congress, this is one of my passions, because I just recently paid off my student loan debt, I think 2 years ago, and we're paying off my wife's student loan debt right now. So, I understand these kinds of things, and I think it's important that I put that message out there. So those are the focuses that I really have. And then just in general, making sure that I'm looking out for my community in Arizona.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And being that you're taking up all of these very tough issues where you're going to have opposition, it's kind of a given
right.
Even the environment in Congress. But how do you plan to work around all of that, partisanship and all of this harshness that is in Congress right now?
Well, a lot of it I learned from working in the Arizona legislature, where, we were Tea Party before the word Tea Party existed. And there's two ways you win this when you're dealing with this kind of, partisanship. Either you wear them down and you just kind of keep on attacking to the point where, they just don't want to fight you anymore. And that works well. Or you find common ground. But for me, I always tell people, just because you were looking for common ground doesn't mean you avoid the fight. And I'm, by nature, I'm still a Marine, and I'm always ready to fight. But Marines also know when it's time to lay down arms and bring peace. So I go, if I have to fight, I'll fight for the issue. If there's a compromise, then we do it. And then repeat every day until you get it right. And eventually, that I feel in my heart that I will win the issue. And besides that, I'm pretty dogged. I will continue until I get my way for my constituents.
And so in something that happened last week, and I know that you were, there were high expectations around this, because this is such an issue that touches you in a very personal way, right? You were talking about your amendments to get Dreamers to serve in the military, and it was shut down basically by Congress. So in your opinion, is it time for you to retreat, or is it time to continue charging on? And how do you plan to continue, advocating for Dreamers?
Well, first, it's time to assess. You look what we did right and look what we did wrong. Figure out who are allies and who are not our allies, and then figure out what our next approach to actually do this. And what we found is that we do have a lot of allies. We have some Republicans who are willing to support us. This is a national issue now. And I think people do understand that Dreamers should be allowed in the military. Look, right now, Dreamers can be drafted. If we get into a war and we need men, because women aren't eligible for the draft yet, but if we need men, Dreamers will be able to get drafted right now. But A dreamer can't choose what military serves for them to be in times of peace. I mean, how does that make any sense? Isn't that one of the highest levels of hypocrisy in this country, that we're going to basically be able to conscript you into service, but not let you serve willingly? So we just need to keep pushing this forward. It's good to see that, Secretary Clinton has jumped on board. I think if we continue pushing this forward, if there's any opportunities this year, I will reintroduce the bill, or if not, next year there's another defense budget and I'll be on that budget again too. So, I think we're going to continue moving forward, and we're going to, need allies out there in the press and society and everything that are willing to join us on this.
Well, and you know that you always have this platform. I'll be happy to help you to push. That's also an issue that is very dear to my heart, as you know. So I would love to have you again when that time comes and you want to talk about the issue in detail. Let's talk about a little bit, you're a new congressman. You just started. As a matter of fact, you just completed your 100th day.
Right.
Of service. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But in looking forward in your career as a politician, what is next for you? Where do you see yourself going? And in terms of your legacy too?
Well, I think right now where I'm going is to continue being a good member of Congress and also being a leader in Arizona. I'm young and still have a lot to learn, but also Arizona needs a lot of transformative change. And the only way that happens is if I make sure that I'm part of the conversation and I'm organizing. I'm always an organizer. I've always been an organizer. It's not going to change now that I have a title. But I need to make sure that Arizona continues to be a better place for working class families, for Latinos, for anybody that wants to make Arizona their home. And that in order for me to do that, that means that I have to be a very good congressman and serve, probably a long time. I'm 35. I could say, I'll be a member of Congress, for 2 decades, and I'll be a young politician at 55. So I'm not in a hurry, but what I am always in a hurry is for change. And that matters more to me than my actual title. And so I look forward to just continuing being here, but really taking a part in the larger conversation in Arizona, but also in the country.
Yeah, I have another question based on this that you just said. I just read an article that talks about, how younger Latinos or younger millennials don't want to necessarily run for office or, or get involved in politics. I wonder why, but what would you say to a young person who may not be thinking about politics as a career or something that they aspire for? Because you're so young and you obviously have an inspiring story. What would you say to somebody like that?
Well, I don't think you should look at politics as a career. I mean, serving should be more like a calling, like the people that join the military or become clergy or a social worker, because this isn't a career. You can make some money off this, but at the end of the day, you're working a lot of long hours. You're not going to be with your family as much. You're going to also sacrifice some things that you can't do normally as a citizen. And you should be doing it for a reason, for people, for the causes, not because you want to have a political career. And so for the people that out there, they want to actually truly change the country or change their neighborhood or change whatever it is. The political process is one of the many ways you do it. It's not the only way, I will agree, but it's one of the many ways that you can do it. And what we have in this government, it's not necessarily a lack of want, of people wanting to run for office. It's what we have is a lack of talent, of people that could actually be talented and are actually, empathetic to a lot of the things that we need for Latinos, for working families, for the poor. And what last thing you want is people just doing this because they want to have it on their title. And so that's what I recommend. If you really want to know that you're helping people on a daily basis, then this is the occupation you should be in. But it's not here for you to just use as a title. It's not here for a little, for you to be here for 4 years and then run for something else. I mean, you have to really, truly want to do something.
Mm-hmm. That's such a beautiful way of putting it. It truly is about serving your community and serving the world, right? So what is your next big piece of legislation that you're planning to push?
We're going to keep on pushing on college affordability, and me and some members of Congress are introducing an idea, and I think a couple other politicians are also talking about the idea of it's called college a debt-free college. So you should be able to go to college and graduate college without any debt. Now, it doesn't mean that it's free, right? You should be able to get some Pell Grants, some scholarships, some work, and you should be able to graduate from college. And so we're putting together a policy idea around that. And I think that's something that's really important. And I think it's a conversation that we really should be talking, especially in a presidential year, where they want to come and get young people's votes. But they don't really talk to our policy when it comes to the policies of what we need to do to help people get to college.
Mm-hmm. That's certainly something that I'll back up. I have a student in college, so I know that I'll back that one up. So, so how can people help you? What would be your call to action for people to support some of this legislation that you'll be pushing? How can they help you?
Well, I think everyone needs to be a citizen activist, and it's not necessarily that they have to link up with me to be involved in this. I think they should really talk to their local community college board, the local state reps, their local state senators, their elected officials at the state level, and even their members of Congress, and saying that it's a priority for me to have a future for my kids and for my grandkids, and college affordability is important. It should be a litmus test for a lot of young men and women whether or not they're going to support a politician. And so becoming a citizen activist when it comes to that, I think would be a huge step. And then two, really just get yourself involved in the elections this year and next year. I think the more we have younger and more diverse crowd involved in politics, both voting and volunteering, it really shows the strength of this community. And when we show our strength, it's a lot harder for them to be picking on us. So I really encourage people to do those two things.
Very true, very true. We all need to get involved. And where can they find you online, and how can they contact your office?
So you could always follow me on my Twitter handle, which is at Rep Rubén Gallego, Rubén Gallego. So REP Rubén Gallego. You could always tweet us there. And then our office is in Washington, D.C. Or in Phoenix, Arizona. And I can't remember our phone number off the top of my head. I'm always running in and out of here. But you definitely could find us on the main page. And if you just Google my name and my office, our office page will come up, and feel free to call. And also, we're a fluent office. We have many of my staffers are Spanish speakers. So feel free to call if someone needs somebody that speaks Spanish, because we're here to give you government service no matter what language possible.
Very, very great to hear. Great to hear that you're so open. That there's so many options for people to get in contact with you. Yeah. I don't want to hold you any longer than we have to, Congressman. I appreciate so much for being here today, and you actually taking the time to answer all of my questions. I want to urge everyone out there to get in contact with your office to support the legislations that you're pushing for, and I want you to please continue fighting for immigration and for veteran rights and for education, low-cost education. These are obviously very important issues for our community. We are so happy that we have somebody out there in Congress who's fighting the good fight for all of us. So thank you again, Congressman, for being here.
Thank you again. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, any last words that you want to say before we go?
No, I just, again, everyone just make sure you keep yourself involved, and they have to hear our opinion. If we don't say anything, we're not going to get anything.
There you go. That's the last word. You got it. So thank you so much for being here, and for everyone watching out there, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day. Bye-bye.